Unusual attitudes occur when the airplane ends up in an attitude that you did not intend. Usually, they happen in instrument conditions, but could also occur in visual conditions when the pilot is distracted. You could also find yourself in an unusual attitude as a result of turbulence, disorientation, or instrument failure. Except in training, entering an unusual attitude is typically not intentional. A pilot will not be ready for the situation and must be trained to react with the proper procedure after the condition is recognized. The technique for recovery must be mastered as to avoid abrupt or incorrect control inputs. When an unusual attitude is recognized, the goal is to return the airplane to straight and level flight. Once that is achieved, you can then determine how to get the airplane back to where it was before. The first step in recovering from an unusual attitude is recognizing that one has occurred. As a general rule, anytime an instrument indicates something other than a normal flight condition, assume that you are in an unusual attitude. Increase the speed of your instrument scan so that you can quickly determine what recovery procedure needs to be used. It is important to understand that unusual attitudes are classified in two ways: nose high and nose low. Each one has a very specific set of steps that must be followed to assure a safe recovery, but first, you must be able to identify which one you are in. A nose-high unusual attitude can be recognized by the vertical speed indicator showing an increase, the altimeter showing an increase, the airspeed indicator showing a decrease, and the attitude indicator showing a nose-up pitch. The nose-low unusual attitude is just the opposite. The indications will be decreasing vertical speed, decreasing altitude, increasing airspeed, and a nose-down pitch. Recovery from an unusual attitude can usually be made by using the attitude indicator to set pitch and bank for straight and level flight. When an unusual attitude is recognized, recovery should be started right away and should be completed using the airspeed indicator, altimeter, vertical speed indicator, and the slip-skid indicator. To recover from a nose-high unusual attitude, increase the throttle to full, then begin lowering the nose to the level pitch attitude and leveling the wings with the ailerons. Don't forget to use the rudder for coordination. The throttle is increased to full to increase your airspeed, while lowering the nose will help you reduce your angle of attack and prevent a stall. Leveling the wings and maintaining coordinated flight will prevent any further turns while regaining airplane control. These control inputs should be made almost simultaneously, but in the order presented. To recover from a nose-low unusual attitude, first reduce the throttle to idle, then level the wings by using coordinated aileron and rudder. Finally, raise the nose to a level flight attitude. In this recovery, the throttle is reduced to idle to prevent an excessive increase of airspeed and loss of altitude. The wings are level before increasing pitch, as to avoid excessive G-force loading or an accelerated stall in the recovery. Be sure to follow this recovery procedure in the exact order listed, and control input should be made as smoothly as possible to prevent damage to the airframe. After the initial recovery from a nose-high or nose-low unusual attitude has been made, the airplane can be maneuvered back to the desired altitude and heading to maintain safe flight. If an IMC, you must trust your instruments, because you could be suffering from visual or spatial disorientation. The best way to recover from an unusual attitude is to never allow the airplane to enter one. Make sure that you properly trim the airplane so it stays in its original attitude if you get distracted. Prior to departing, prepare and organize your charts, checklists, and navigation logs so you don't become distracted looking for something important during the flight. If you accidentally find yourself in the clouds, trust your instruments and call for help so that you can safely return to VFR conditions. If you do find yourself in an unusual attitude, remain calm and follow the procedures to recover safely. Now that we've covered how to recognize and recover from unusual attitudes, let's take a look at some of the standards for the end-of-course check ride. Perform timely recognition of the nature of the unusual attitude. Recognize unusual attitudes solely by reference to instruments. Recover promptly to a stabilized level flight attitude using a proper instrument cross-check and interpretation, and apply smooth, coordinated control application in the correct sequence. Perform appropriate trimming to relieve control pressures. When level, maintain altitude plus or minus 200 feet, heading plus or minus 20 degrees, and airspeed plus or minus 10 knots.